Thank you for staying tuned. The FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange has initiated a training series for its market share stakeholders and participants to promote a holistic understanding of the derivatives market. The training series, which is directed at different segments of the Nigerian financial market, is designed to address the diverse interests represented in the derivatives market ahead of the official launch of the product. Well, joining us now to provide more insight on this is the Vice President Market Architecture at FMDQ, Ms. Jumoke Olanio. Good afternoon, Jumoke. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
So what prompted this idea by FMDQ to come up with this training on derivatives at this time?
So this training is part of the delivery objectives of the FMDQ Derivatives Development Project. We had identified the need to establish a formal derivatives market, well-structured derivatives market. And in doing so, we had conducted a feasibility study some 2-3 years ago in 2016. And one of the major key success factors that had been identified that would aid the development of this formalized derivatives market was the education of stakeholders in the derivatives market. And so in order to achieve that, in actualizing the delivery of this key success factor, FMDQ, through the FMDQ Academy, has set up and established a series of trainings for derivatives market. And just like your introduction spoke to, it's to cover training for a diverse range of stakeholders in the market to ensure that all participants or all stakeholders in this market are educated and understand the derivatives market, especially the structure FMDQ is proposing to introduce.
Okay, now, operators and investors' concerns around derivatives have always been the absence of central counterparty clearing as the CCP. With this training, how ready is the FMDQ for derivatives trading?
Oh, we're absolutely going well ahead, getting ready for this. The central counterparty, the clearinghouse, that you just mentioned is one of the other key success factors. So as you imagine, it was identified under our feasibility study. And as, again, in actualizing that key success factor, that gave rise to the establishment of FMDQ Limited, which is the wholly owned subsidiary of FMDQ OTC Securities Exchange. We've been operational, or the clearinghouse has been operational since last year, and they continue to, grow and improve on their operational readiness for derivatives clearing. So our investors, stakeholders in the market can be rest assured that they would have this critical financial market infrastructure in place. In fact, you would recall that since the launch of the OTC FX futures, we in FMDQ have been actually offering the clearinghouse services for that derivative product, and even after the establishment of the FMDQ Clear Limited, they have taken on that function. So they're well aware of the need for clearing in derivatives, and they are improving and working on the operational readiness to take on the formalized derivatives market that we're launching.
Now, there are regulations for the debt and equities market. Now, any regulations yet for derivatives?
There were some regulation in the market. The SEC had some regulation for the derivatives market taken from the Investment and Securities Act. The central bank did have some regulation for FX-based derivatives as well in our market. But I think what is even more important is most recently the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, have put out a piece of work in reviewing the regulation for derivatives trading in Nigeria. They've gone quite a long way on that, and we're very happy with that. They've released or exposed those rules to the markets where all stakeholders have had the opportunity, to have input in it. So we very look forward to the final rules coming, and that, of course, will set the foundation for derivatives market in Nigeria.
Now, is the FMDQ... Yeah, Jumoke, sorry, just the last one before I let you go. Is the FMDQ OTC targeting any timeline for the commencement of this? If yes, what measures have been put in place to mitigate those initial challenges and infractions?
I think what is more important to talk about is what work has been done on these key success factors to ensure that we're all able to, get to the end of the road. Legislation have been worked up as a market in collaboration with the necessary legislators. The entity FMDQ Clear is setting up operational, as I spoke to you. FMDQ on its part is also preparing the market, which is part of what FMDQ Clear Academy, is doing now, preparing the participants well ahead to understand this market is and how they can use it so that they also can go back and get prepared internally in their organizations. I think it's more a case of when all parties are, on the same page and at the same level of readiness, then the market will take off. We at FMDQ, especially on this education part, which is even why we had set up an academy especially for this purpose, because we recognize how important the education of the stakeholders are. And I think the objective will be, once we are comfortable that the stakeholders are ready, and the market will naturally take from that point. But I think the milestones of getting education out and getting all the other key success factors ready is the more important focus.
All right, thank you very much for your time, Jumoke Olaniye, the Vice President, Market Architecture at FMDQ. Move on now. The International Monetary Fund has asked Algeria to focus on avoiding economic instability during its political transition after President Abdulaziz Bouteflika's resignation. The IMF's Middle East and Central Asia Director says that structural reforms will allow Algeria to diversify outside oil and to use its strengths both in terms of a young population, geographical location, and wealth it has in different sectors. Bouteflika resigned on April the 2nd amid mass demonstrations against his two-decade rule, and the protests have not stopped, with activists seeking the departure of Prime Minister Nouribid Bode and interim President Abdoulaye Ben Salah. And the state-financed Abu Dhabi Fund for Development has deposited $250 million in Sudan's central bank as part of a previously announced grant. The deposit is part of a $3 billion grant to Sudan announced by the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia earlier this month, which includes a $500 million central bank deposit. Sudan's economic crisis triggered mass protests that led to the ouster of former President Omar al-Bashir earlier this month. The country has been suffering from rapid inflation and shortages of cash, fuel, and other basic products. And finally, Kenya has secured $666 million in funding from China to build a data center in a tech city currently under construction and a highway in Nairobi. According to the presidency, Kenya turned to China over the past few years for funds, technology, and equipment to develop its infrastructure, including its biggest project since independence. The new funding will consist of loans at low interest rates and partnerships with private firms. The tech city will be built in Konza, about an hour's drive from Nairobi. Critics accuse Kenyatta's government of saddling future generations with unbearable debt burdens by borrowing more funds from China. However, the government says borrowing to build the infrastructure will spur economic development. And that's it on the program. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Chimezi Obi Uwago.